What if your entire future could be shaped by a few small choices repeated daily? This audiobook will teach you how to build life-changing habits that work, no matter who you are or where you begin. Are you ready to unlock the quiet power that turns ordinary people into unstoppable ones? Chapter 1. Why habits make or break your life. You wake up tomorrow morning, and everything is exactly the same. Same alarm, same routine, same thoughts racing through your mind as your feet hit the floor. You brush your teeth the same way, grab coffee from the same mug, check your phone with the same mindless swipe. By 9 a.m., you've already performed dozens of automated behaviors without a single conscious decision. This is the invisible architecture of your life. This is the power of habit. Most people dramatically underestimate how much of their daily experience runs on autopilot. Researchers estimate that 40–45% of our daily actions aren't decisions at all. They're habits. Nearly half of everything you do today, you'll do exactly the same way tomorrow, and the day after that, and the year after that. Think about that for a moment. If habits control almost half your life, then whoever controls your habits controls your destiny. The uncomfortable truth is this. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Your habits are your systems. They're the compound interest of self-improvement. Get 1% better each day for 1 year, and you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. Get 1% worse each day for 1 year, and you'll decline nearly down to zero. But here's what most people miss. Habits aren't just about productivity or achievement. They're about identity. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. Consider James, a software engineer who decided he wanted to become a runner. He started with just putting on his running shoes every morning after coffee. That's it. No pressure to actually run, just shoes. After 2 weeks, the act felt incomplete without stepping outside. After a month, stepping outside felt incomplete without a quick jog around the block. 6 months later, James had completed his first half marathon. But more importantly, he had become someone who runs. The identity shift created the behavior change, not the other way round. This is why willpower fails, and systems succeed. Willpower is finite. It depletes throughout the day like a muscle growing tired, but systems run automatically. They don't require constant decision-making or motivation. They just are. Your current habits are perfectly designed to give you the results you're currently getting. If you want different results, you need different systems. If you're overweight, you have the perfect habits for someone who is overweight. If you're always running late, you have the perfect habits for someone who is always running late. If you're struggling financially, you have the perfect habits for someone who struggles financially. This isn't about blame, it's about recognition. Your habits were shaped by your environment, your upbringing, your social circle, and 1,000 other factors beyond your control. But now that you understand how the system works, you can begin to reprogram it. The most successful people in any field, athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, leaders, aren't necessarily more disciplined than everyone else. They've simply built better systems. They've automated the behaviors that support their goals, while minimizing the ones that don't. Take Warren Buffett, one of the world's most successful investors. His daily routine is remarkably simple and consistent. He reads for hours, thinks deeply about investment decisions, and avoids meetings unless absolutely necessary. These aren't acts of willpower, they're systematic habits that compound over decades to create extraordinary results. Or consider Maya Angelou, who rented a hotel room with nothing but a Bible, a thesaurus, and a bottle of sherry, where she would write from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day. The environment and routine weren't just preferences. They were carefully designed systems that supported her identity as a writer. The science backs this up. Neuroscientists have discovered that when we repeat a behavior often enough, neural pathways become more efficient. The brain literally rewires itself to make the habit easier to perform and harder to resist. This is why breaking bad habits feels so difficult and why new habits take time to stick. But here's the encouraging part. This neuroplasticity works both ways. Just as your brain can be trained into destructive patterns, it can be retrained into constructive ones. The same neural mechanisms that keep you trapped can be the ones that set you free. Your habits shape your days shape your years, and your years shape your life. Change your habits. and you change everything. This isn't motivational fluff. It's biological reality. Every habit you perform literally changes your brain, and your brain determines your behavior. The question isn't whether you have habits. You do. Thousands of them. The question is whether your habits are working for you or against you. Are they moving you toward the person you want to become? Or are they keeping you stuck as the person you've always been? Most people spend their entire lives as passengers in their own existence, carried along by habits they never consciously chose. They wake up at 50 and wonder where the time went, why their dreams never materialized, why they feel stuck in patterns they can't break. But you're reading this book, which means you're ready to take the wheel. You're ready to become the architect of your own transformation instead of its victim. The power isn't in perfection, it's in progression. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You just need to understand how the system works. And then work the system. Small changes, compounded over time, create remarkable results. This is your invitation to step into that power, to recognize that every moment is a chance to cast a vote for the person you're becoming, to understand that your identity isn't fixed, it's flexible. To realize that the life you want isn't built in dramatic moments of inspiration, but in quiet moments of consistency. Your habits are the foundation upon which everything else is built. Get the foundation right, and everything else becomes possible. Get it wrong, and even your best efforts will crumble. The choice is yours. Will you continue to be shaped by your habits, or will you finally learn to shape them? Chapter 2. The Habit Loop. How Behavior Becomes Automatic. Deep in the basement of your brain, there's a primitive structure called the basal ganglia. It's about the size of a golf ball and has been keeping humans alive for millions of years. This ancient neural circuit doesn't care about your goals, your dreams, or your New Year's resolutions. It has one job: to make your behavior as automatic as possible, so your conscious mind can focus on staying alive. This is where habits are born, live, and die. Understanding this biological machinery is the difference between struggling against your nature and working with it. Every habit follows the same neurological pattern, discovered by researchers at MIT and refined by behavioral scientists worldwide. It's called the habit loop, and it has three components: cue, routine, and reward. This loop is so fundamental that it operates below the level of consciousness, which explains why habits feel so automatic and why breaking them can feel nearly impossible. Let's start with the cue. A cue is any trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode and which routine to use. Cues can be internal or external, obvious or subtle. The smell of coffee brewing, the notification ping on your phone, the feeling of stress building in your chest, the sight of your running shoes by the door. Your brain is constantly scanning for these triggers, ready to initiate the appropriate routine. The routine is the behavior itself, the actual habit. This could be physical, mental, or emotional. Checking your phone, going for a run, reaching for a cigarette, practicing gratitude. The routine can be simple or complex, lasting seconds or hours, but it's always the response to the cue. The reward is why the loop gets reinforced. Every habit provides some type of benefit, even destructive ones. The reward might be physical, the sugar rush from candy; emotional, the social connection from checking social media; or psychological, the sense of accomplishment from completing a task. The brain remembers this reward and begins to crave it whenever it encounters the cue. Here's where it gets fascinating. Over time, the brain stops fully awakening during the routine. The cue triggers automatic behavior that continues until the reward is received. This is why you can drive home from work without remembering the journey, or why you sometimes find yourself mindlessly scrolling through social media without remembering picking up your phone. But there's a fourth element that makes habits truly stick: the craving. This is what transforms a simple routine into an automatic habit. The craving is the anticipation of the reward. It's what happens in the gap between the cue and the routine. Without craving, there's no motivation to act. With it, action becomes nearly inevitable. Consider Sarah, who developed a habit of checking social media every time she felt bored at work. The cue was the feeling of boredom. The routine was opening Instagram. The reward was the brief entertainment and social connection. But what made this a true habit was the craving. The moment boredom hit, her brain would anticipate the pleasure of scrolling, creating an almost irresistible urge to reach for her phone. Understanding this loop is powerful, because it reveals that you're not fighting the habit itself. You're fighting millions of years of evolutionary programming designed to make behavior automatic, but you're also not powerless. Once you understand the machinery, you can reprogram it. The key insight is this: you can't eliminate the cue routine reward loop, but you can change its components. This is called habit substitution, and it's the foundation of lasting behavioral change. To change a habit, you keep the same cue and reward, but change the route. Sarah wanted to stop checking social media at work, but still needed a way to handle boredom. So she kept the cue feeling bored, and identified the real reward she was seeking: mental stimulation and a brief break. Then she substituted a different routine. Instead of reaching for her phone, she would do a 2-minute breathing exercise or read a page from a book she kept in her desk drawer. This worked because her brain still got the reward it was craving, just through a different routine. The cue craving reward pattern remained intact, but the behavior changed. Sometimes the most challenging part is identifying what reward you're actually seeking. Many habits provide multiple rewards, and they're not always obvious. The person who smokes might think they're seeking nicotine, but they're actually craving the 5-minute break from work, the social interaction with other smokers, or the ritual of having something to do with their hands. The person who checks email compulsively might think they're staying productive, but they're actually seeking the micro-reward of social validation, or the brief excitement of potential good news. The person who snacks mindlessly might think they're hungry, but they're actually seeking comfort, stress relief, or a way to procrastinate. To decode your habits, start paying attention to the rewards you're receiving. After you perform a routine, ask yourself, how do I feel? What was I craving just before I acted? What need did this behavior satisfy? Often, you'll discover that the surface reward, sugar, social media, shopping, is just delivering a deeper psychological reward: comfort, connection, control. This is why simply trying to eliminate a habit rarely works. If you just remove the routine without addressing the underlying craving, your brain will find another way to get the reward it seeks. This is why people who quit smoking sometimes gain weight, or why people who give up social media sometimes find themselves compulsively checking email instead. But when you understand what you're really craving, you can design better routines to satisfy that craving. Instead of eliminating the habit, you evolve it. The most powerful part of the habit loop is that it can work for you or against you with equal effectiveness. The same neurological pattern that traps you in destructive behaviors can lock you into constructive ones. The brain doesn't distinguish between good and bad habits. It just automates whatever you repeat consistently. This is why building good habits is just as important as breaking bad ones. Every positive routine you establish creates a neurological pathway that makes that behavior easier in the future. Every time you choose the better option, you're voting for the person you want to become and making that choice more automatic next time. The habit loop also explains why willpower isn't sustainable. Willpower requires conscious decision-making, which is mentally exhausting. But habits require no conscious decision at all, they just happen. This is why successful people don't rely on discipline for everything. They use discipline strategically to establish good habits, then let those habits run automatically. Your brain is constantly forming habit loops, whether you're aware of it or not. Every time you repeat a behavior in response to a cue and receive a reward, you're strengthening a neural pathway. The question is whether you're going to be intentional about which pathways get strengthened. This is your opportunity to become the programmer of your own behavior instead of its victim. Start by mapping the habit loops that currently run a life. Identify your cues, routines, and rewards. Then begin the patient work of keeping what serves you and changing what doesn't. Your habits are running in the background right now, shaping your day, your mood, your results, and your identity. Once you understand how they work, you can finally make them work for you. Chapter 3: Identity-based habits. There are two ways to change your behavior. You can focus on what you want to achieve, or you can focus on who you want to become. The first approach leads to outcome-based habits. The second leads to identity-based habits. Most people start with outcomes. They want to lose weight, so they go on a diet. They want to get stronger, so they start going to the gym. They want to be more productive, so they download a new app. There's nothing wrong with outcome-based habits, but they're built on the wrong foundation. When you focus on outcomes, you're essentially saying, I'm not the type of person I want to be, but I'm going to act like that person until I get the results I want. This creates an internal conflict. Part of you is trying to change, while another part is trying to stay the same. Identity-based habits work differently. Instead of focusing on what you want to achieve, you focus on who you want to become. Instead of saying, "I want to lose weight," you say, "I want to become the type of person who takes care of their body." Instead of "I want to write a book," you say, "I want to become a writer." This isn't just semantic wordplay. It's a fundamental shift in how you approach change. When your behavior aligns with your identity, change becomes much easier because you're no longer fighting against yourself. You're simply acting in accordance with who you are. Consider two people who are trying to quit smoking. When someone offers them a cigarette, the first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second person says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." The first person still sees themselves as a smoker who is trying to be something else. The second person has shifted their identity. They've become a non-smoker. This identity shift creates a powerful psychological force. When you believe something about yourself, you naturally act in ways that reinforce that belief. If you see yourself as a healthy person, you instinctively make healthier choices. If you see yourself as a disciplined person, you naturally resist temptation more easily. If you see yourself as a learner, you automatically seek out opportunities to grow. Your identity is essentially your repeated beingness. You are not born with predetermined beliefs about yourself. Your self-image is created and reinforced by your habits. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. Win enough votes, and you win the election. Your new identity becomes who you are. This is why small habits matter so much. They're not just minor improvements, they're small votes for a new identity. The person who writes one paragraph every day is voting to become a writer. The person who does 10 push-ups every morning is voting to become an athlete. The person who reads one page before bed is voting to become someone who values learning. But here's what most people get wrong. They think they need to wait for motivation or inspiration to change their identity. They believe they need to feel like a writer before they can start writing, or feel like an athlete before they can start exercising. The truth is the opposite. You become what you repeatedly do. Identity follows behavior, not the other way around. Take Marcus, a software developer who wanted to become a morning person. For years, he told himself he wasn't a morning person. He was naturally a night owl. This identity made it nearly impossible to wake up early, because every morning he was fighting against his self-concept. Then Marcus tried a different approach. Instead of trying to become someone who wakes up early, he focused on becoming someone who honors his commitments to himself. Every night, he would set his alarm and make a simple promise: "I will get up when this alarm goes off." When the alarm rang, instead of thinking "I'm not a morning person," he thought, "I'm the type of person who keeps promises to myself." This identity shift changed everything. Within a month, Marcus was naturally waking up at 5:30 a.m. without struggle, because his behavior aligned with his identity. He wasn't fighting against who he was expressing who he had become. The process of changing your identity through habits works in 2 steps. First, you decide who you want to be. Second, you prove it to yourself with small wins. You don't need to completely overhaul your life overnight. You just need to demonstrate your new identity through your actions. Want to become a reader? Read 1 page. Want to become a writer? Write 1 sentence. Want to become a runner? Put on your running shoes. Want to become an organized person? Clean your desk. Want to become a healthy person? Eat 1 piece of fruit. These actions seem almost ridiculously small, but that serve a crucial psychological function. They prove to yourself that you are the type of person who does these things. Each repetition reinforces your new identity and makes the next action easier. This is why focusing on systems rather than goals is so powerful. Goals are about what you want to achieve. Systems are about who you want to become. When you focus on identity, the results take care of themselves. But there's a crucial point here. Your identity isn't fixed. It's not determined by your genes, your past, or your circumstances. Your identity is determined by your habits. This means you have complete control over who you become. You can literally reshape your identity through your daily actions. The key is to start with incredibly small habits that align with your desired identity, then gradually increase their difficulty as your new identity solidifies. If you want to become someone who exercises regularly, Start by putting on your workout clothes every day. If you want to become someone who eats healthy, start by eating one piece of fruit with lunch. If you want to become someone who's more grateful, start by writing down one thing you're thankful for each morning. This approach works because it bypasses the resistance that comes with trying to change too much too fast. When you start small, your brain doesn't perceive the new behavior as a threat. There's no internal alarm system telling you to go back to your old ways. As these small habits become automatic, you can gradually expand them. The person who puts on workout clothes every day will eventually feel incomplete without actually exercising. The person who eats one piece of fruit will naturally start making other healthy food choices. The person who writes down one thing they're grateful for will begin to notice more positive aspects of their day. Your identity has tremendous momentum. Once you believe something about yourself, you filter all new information through that belief. If you see yourself as a disciplined person, you'll interpret your actions as evidence of your discipline. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with consistency, you'll interpret the same actions as flukes or accidents. This is why identity-based habits are so powerful and why they're so important to get right. Your identity doesn't just influence your behavior, it determines what you notice, how you interpret events, and what you believe is possible for yourself. The beautiful thing about identity-based habits is that they create an upward spiral. The more you act like the person you want to become, the more you believe you are that person. The more you believe you are that person, the more naturally you act like that person. Each cycle reinforces the next. Your identity is like a sculpture. Every habit is a chisel stroke. With each repetition, you're carving away the parts of yourself that no longer serve you and revealing the person you were meant to become. The question isn't whether you have the ability to change. You're changing every day, whether you realize it or not. The question is whether you're going to be intentional about who you're becoming. Chapter 4: The First Domino. Keystone Habits. Not all habits are created equal. Some habits matter more than others, because they have the power to start a chain reaction, transforming multiple areas of your life simultaneously. These are called keystone habits, and identifying yours might be the most important thing you do for your personal development. A keystone habit is a single practice that naturally triggers other positive behaviors. It's the first domino that, when pushed, causes all the other dominoes to fall in perfect sequence. When you get your keystone habit right, everything else becomes easier. When you neglect it, everything else falls apart. The concept comes from architecture, where a keystone is the central stone that holds an entire arch together. Remove the keystone, and the whole structure collapses. Add the keystone, and suddenly, the arch can bear tremendous weight. Keystone habits work the same way in your life. Consider exercise, which is one of the most common keystone habits. When people start exercising regularly, they often report improvements in areas that have nothing to do with fitness. They eat better without trying. They sleep more soundly. They become more productive at work. They have more patience with their family. They feel more confident in social situations. This isn't because exercise directly causes better nutrition or improved relationships. It's because exercise creates a psychological shift that makes other positive behaviors more likely. When you see yourself as someone who takes care of their body, you naturally start taking care of other areas of your life too. Sarah discovered this accidentally. As a marketing executive and mother of two, she felt overwhelmed by the chaos of daily life. She was always running late, eating poorly, feeling exhausted. Her relationships were suffering, and her work performance was declining. She decided to try running as a way to manage stress. At first, Sarah could barely run for 5 minutes, but she committed to putting on her running shoes every morning after dropping the kids at school. Within a month, she was running for 20 minutes. But something unexpected happened. Other areas of her life started improving too. She began waking up earlier naturally, which gave her time to prepare healthy lunches instead of buying fast food. She started going to bed at a reasonable hour, because she wanted to feel good for her morning run. She became more organized because she needed to lay out her running clothes the night before. Her mood improved, which made her more patient with her children and more creative at work. Running became Sarah's keystone habit. It was the first positive change that triggered a cascade of other improvements. She didn't set out to overhaul her entire life. She just wanted to manage stress. But because she chose the right starting point, Everything else followed naturally. Keystone habits work because they create what psychologists call small wins, early successes that provide momentum for additional changes. When you master one area of your life, you gain confidence that you can master others. More importantly, you start to see yourself as the type of person who creates positive change. But keystone habits also work on a practical level. They often involve what researchers call contagious behaviors, actions that naturally spill over into other areas of life. When you establish a morning routine, you're more likely to plan your entire day. When you start tracking your expenses, you naturally become more mindful about all your decisions. When you practice gratitude, you begin to notice positive aspects of situations you previously saw as negative. The key to identifying your keystone habit is to look for behaviors that align with your desired identity while also creating natural spillover effects. Here are some questions to help you identify potential keystone habits. What's one change that would make the biggest difference in how you see yourself? What's one routine that would naturally lead to other positive behaviors? What's one practice that addresses your biggest source of stress or dissatisfaction? What's one habit that would give you a sense of control and accomplishment early in the day? For many people, morning routines serve as keystone habits. When you start your day with intention, that intentionality carries forward into everything else. The specific components of the routine matter less than the consistency and the sense of agency it provides. Michael, a freelance writer, struggled with procrastination and inconsistent income. He often worked late into the night, slept poorly, and woke up feeling behind before the day even started. His keystone habit became a simple morning routine. Wake up at 6 a.m., drink a glass of water, and write for 30 minutes before checking email or social media. This routine did more than improve his writing productivity. It gave him a sense of accomplishment before 7 a.m., which made him feel capable of tackling bigger challenges throughout the day. It protected his most creative hours from the chaos of email and social media. It created a consistent sleep schedule because he needed to go to bed earlier to wake up at 6 a.m. Within 3 months, Michael's income had doubled, not because he was working more hours but because he was working more effectively. The morning routine had become the foundation that supported improvements in every other area of his professional life. Some keystone habits are personal, like exercise or meditation. Others are environmental, like making your bed or cleaning your kitchen before going to sleep. Some are social, like having dinner with your family without phones or scheduling regular coffee dates with friends. The important thing is that your keystone habit should feel manageable while also creating positive momentum. If it's too difficult, you won't stick with it long enough to see the cascade effects. If it's too easy, it won't create the psychological shift that triggers other changes. Lisa, a busy executive, tried to establish exercise as her keystone habit, but kept failing because she was trying to go to the gym for an hour every morning. The commitment was too big for her current lifestyle, so she scaled it down to just putting on workout clothes every morning. This simple act made her feel more energetic and confident, which led to taking the stairs instead of the elevator, which led to walking to lunch instead of eating at her desk, which eventually led to joining a gym. The power of keystone habits is that they don't require you to change everything at once. They allow you to focus your limited willpower on one crucial area while other improvements happen naturally. This is much more sustainable than trying to overhaul your entire life simultaneously. But keystone habits only work if you're consistent with them. The spillover effects only occur when the central habit is solid. This is why it's crucial to start small and focus on consistency over intensity. A 20-minute morning routine performed daily for a year will have more impact than a 2-hour routine performed sporadically for a month. It's also important to recognize that keystone habits can be negative as well as positive. Checking your phone first thing in the morning can trigger a day of distraction and reactivity. Skipping breakfast can lead to poor food choices throughout the day. Staying up late watching TV can create a cascade of fatigue and poor decisions the next day. This is why identifying and changing negative keystone habits is just as important as establishing positive ones. Sometimes the most powerful change you can make is eliminating one destructive pattern that undermines everything else. Your keystone habit should align with your values and support your desired identity. It should feel like something the person you want to become would naturally do. When you find the right keystone habit, it won't feel like you're forcing change. It will feel like you're finally acting like yourself. The beautiful thing about keystone habits is that they prove you don't need to be perfect in every area of your life to see dramatic improvements. You just need to get one crucial thing right and let the positive effects ripple outward. What will your keystone habit be? After Chapter 5, Small Wins, Big Change. We live in a culture that worships dramatic transformation. We want to lose 30 pounds in 30 days, build $1 million business overnight, and master new skills in a weekend. This obsession with rapid change isn't just unrealistic, it's counterproductive. Real change happens through small, consistent actions compounded over time. The mathematics of small improvements are startling. If you get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. If you get 1% worse each day for 1 year, you'll decline nearly down to zero. This is the power of compound improvement, and it's available to anyone willing to focus on small wins rather than big leaps. But our brains aren't wired to appreciate gradual progress. We're designed to notice dramatic changes and ignore subtle ones. This is why most people abandon their habits before they see results. They expect linear progress, but improvement happens exponentially. The first days, weeks, and even months can feel insignificant. Then suddenly, everything accelerates. James Clear, the author who popularized this concept, calls it the plateau of latent potential. Imagine an ice cube sitting in a room. The temperature rises from 25 to 26 degrees. Nothing happens. 26 to 27 degrees. Still nothing. 28, 29, 30, 31 degrees. The ice cube remains solid. Then, at 32 degrees, the ice begins to melt. The change from 31 to 32 degrees was no different from the change from 25 to 26 degrees. But it produced a dramatically different result. This is how habit formation works. You can make small improvements day after day, with no visible change. Then suddenly you experience a breakthrough. The work wasn't wasted during those early stages. It was accumulating. Every repetition was building the foundation for the breakthrough that seemed to happen overnight. Consider Anna, a graphic designer who wanted to become a better photographer. She committed to taking one photo every day and posting it on Instagram. For the first 3 months, she felt like she was making no progress. Her photos looked amateur, she gained only a few followers, and she received minimal engagement. But Anna understood the power of small wins. Instead of focusing on the results, she focused on the process. Each day she took her photo, experimented with different techniques, and studied the work of photographers she admired. She celebrated the small victory of simply showing up consistently. After 6 months, something shifted. Her eye for composition improved. Her technical skills developed. Her unique style began to emerge. By month 9, she was getting hired for freelance photography projects. By year 2, photography had become a significant part of her income. The dramatic transformation appeared to happen suddenly, but it was actually the result of 30-65 small improvements. This is why small wins are so powerful. They build momentum and create positive feedback loops. Each small success increases your confidence, which makes you more likely to continue. Each repetition strengthens the neural pathways that make the behavior easier next time. Each day you show up, you're proving to yourself that you're the type of person who follows through on commitments. Small wins also bypass the resistance that comes with attempting big changes. When you try to change too much too fast, your brain perceives it as a threat and activates defense mechanisms. You feel overwhelmed, make excuses, and eventually quit. But when changes are small enough, they slip past your brain's alarm system. This is why the most successful habit changes start almost laughably small. Want to read more? Commit to reading 1 page per day. Want to exercise regularly? Commit to putting on your workout clothes. Want to eat healthier? Commit to eating 1 piece of fruit with lunch. Want to be more grateful? Commit to writing down 1 thing you appreciate each morning. These habits seem insignificant, but they serve a crucial purpose. They establish the behavior pattern without overwhelming your willpower. Once the pattern is established, you can gradually increase the difficulty. The key insight is that you're not trying to achieve your ultimate goal immediately. You're trying to become the type of person who does that thing consistently. The person who reads 1 page per day becomes a reader. The person who puts on workout clothes becomes someone who exercises. The person who writes down one gratitude item becomes someone who appreciates life. This identity shift is more valuable than any specific outcome, because once you see yourself as that type of person, the behaviors become natural expressions of who you are, rather than things you have to force yourself to do. David wanted to become a morning person so he could write before work. His first instinct was to set his alarm for 5 a.m. and plan to write for 2 hours. This lasted exactly 3 days before he returned to his old schedule. Then he tried a different approach. Instead of focusing on waking up early to write, David focused on becoming someone who honors commitments to himself. He set his alarm just 10 minutes earlier than usual and committed to getting up immediately when it rang, regardless of how he felt. He didn't try to write or exercise, he just got up. After 2 weeks, getting up 10 minutes early felt automatic, so he moved his alarm back another 10 minutes, then another 10 minutes. Within 2 months, David was naturally waking up an hour earlier and using that time to write. The small win of simply getting up when his alarm rang had created the foundation for the larger change he wanted. Small wins work because they create what psychologists call efficacy, the belief that you can successfully perform a behavior. Each time you follow through on a small commitment, you're building evidence that you're capable of change. This evidence becomes the foundation for bigger challenges. The compound effect of small wins also applies to skill development. Malcolm Gladwell popularized the idea that mastery requires 10,000 hours of practice, but he missed a crucial point. Those hours need to be focused on continuous small improvements, not just repetition. Musicians don't become virtuosos by playing the same song over and over. They master one technique, then build on it. They practice scales before symphonies. They perfect simple melodies before attempting complex compositions. Each small improvement creates the foundation for the next level of difficulty. This is true for any skill. Writers master sentences before paragraphs, paragraphs before chapters, chapters before books. Athletes master basic movements before complex techniques. Entrepreneurs master small business operations before scaling to larger ventures. The power of small wins is that they're sustainable. Large changes require enormous motivation and perfect conditions. Small changes can be maintained regardless of circumstances. You can read 1 page when you're tired, take 1 photo when you're busy, write 1 sentence when you're uninspired. This consistency is what creates lasting change. It's not the intensity of your efforts that matters, it's the reliability. A small habit, performed consistently, will always beat a perfect habit performed inconsistently. But here's the challenge. Small wins don't feel significant in the moment. Your brain will try to convince you that such tiny actions don't matter. It will tell you to wait until you have more time, more motivation, or better circumstances to make real changes. This is the critical moment where most people fail. They dismiss small actions as insufficient and wait for the perfect moment to make dramatic changes. That moment rarely comes. Meanwhile, the person who embraces small wins is quietly building the foundation for extraordinary results. The secret is to trust the process even when you can't see the results. Every small action is a deposit in your compound interest account of personal development. You can't see the growth day by day, but over months and years, the results become undeniable. Small wins aren't just about building habits, they're about building a new relationship with yourself. Every time you follow through on a small commitment, you're proving that you can be trusted. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you're demonstrating that your actions aren't controlled by your emotions. Every time you choose consistency over intensity, you're investing in long-term success over short-term gratification. This is the foundation of all lasting change, the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you'll do what you say you'll do. Even when it's small, even when no one's watching, even when it doesn't seem to matter, because it always matters. Every small win is a vote for the person you're becoming. Chapter 6. Morning routines that anchor you. The way you start your day determines how the rest of it unfolds. Your morning routine is the foundation upon which everything else is built. Get it right, and you'll move through your day with intention, energy, and focus. Get it wrong, and you'll spend the day feeling reactive, scattered, and behind. This isn't mystical thinking. It's neuroscience. Your brain produces different chemicals and operates in different states throughout the day. The first hour after waking is when your cortisol levels are naturally highest, giving you peak alertness and focus. Your willpower reserves are fully replenished after sleep. Your mind is clear, uncluttered by the day's decisions and distractions. This golden hour is your opportunity to invest in yourself before the world starts making demands on your attention. It's when you can align your actions with your values, reinforce your identity through positive habits, and create momentum that carries you through whatever challenges the day brings. The most successful people across every field have recognized this truth. They don't leave their mornings to chance. They design them intentionally. Tim Cook starts his day at 4:30 a.m. with email and gym time. Oprah Winfrey begins with meditation and gratitude. Barack Obama works out every morning before reading briefings. Anna Wintour plays tennis at 6 a.m. These aren't just personal preferences, they're strategic decisions. These individuals understand that how they spend their first hour sets the tone for everything that follows. They're investing their peak mental energy in activities that align with their priorities, rather than reactive tasks that drain their reserves. But here's what most people get wrong about morning routines. They think they need to copy someone else's exact schedule. They read about a CEO who wakes up at 4 a.m. and try to replicate it exactly, ignoring their own chronotype, lifestyle, and priorities. This approach almost always fails because it's based on someone else's identity, not your own. Your morning routine should be uniquely yours. It should reflect your values, support your goals, and work within your constraints. A parent with young children will have different possibilities than a single person living alone. A night shift worker will have different needs than someone with a traditional office job. The key isn't to follow a perfect template, it's to design a routine that serves you. However, effective morning routines do share certain characteristics. They typically include elements that address 4 key areas: physical energy, mental clarity, emotional stability, and spiritual connection. You don't need to address all 4 areas every morning, but the most sustainable routines touch on at least 2 or 3. Physical energy might come from exercise, stretching, cold showers, or simply drinking water to rehydrate after sleep. Mental clarity might come from journaling, reading, or planning your day. Emotional stability might come from meditation, gratitude practice, or calling a loved one. Spiritual connection might come from prayer, time in nature, or reflecting on your values and purpose. Consider Marcus, a software engineer and father of 2 young children. His old morning routine was purely reactive: wake up to his phone alarm, immediately check email and social media, rush to get kids ready for school, grab coffee on the way to work, and arrive feeling stressed and behind. Marcus knew he needed to change, but his first attempt was too ambitious. He tried to wake up an hour earlier to meditate, exercise, and journal. This lasted 4 days before exhaustion forced him back to his old routine. So he tried a different approach. Marcus started with just 10 minutes. He set his alarm 10 minutes earlier and used that time for one simple practice: drinking a glass of water while thinking about 3 things he was grateful for. No phone, no email, no rushing, just hydration and gratitude. This felt manageable, so Marcus stuck with it. After 2 weeks, the routine felt automatic, so he added 5 more minutes for light stretching. After another month, he added 5 minutes of journaling. Gradually, his morning routine expanded to 30 minutes. Because he built it slowly, it never felt overwhelming. The impact was dramatic. Marcus started his days feeling centered and intentional instead of reactive and scattered. His energy levels improved throughout the day. His relationships with his children improved because he was more patient and present. His work performance improved because he arrived at the office with clarity about his priorities. The key to Marcus's success was starting small and building gradually. He didn't try to become a different person overnight. He slowly evolved into someone who valued intentional mornings. Each small addition felt natural because it built on an already established foundation. Your morning routine doesn't need to be long to be effective. Some of the most powerful routines take just 15 to 20 minutes. The key is consistency and intention. A simple routine performed daily will have more impact than an elaborate routine performed sporadically. Here's a framework for designing your own morning routine. Start by identifying your core values and priorities. What kind of person do you want to be? What areas of your life need the most attention? Your morning routine should reinforce these priorities through small, concrete actions. Next, consider your constraints. How much time can you realistically dedicate to a morning routine? What time do you need to be out the door? What are your family obligations? Design within these constraints rather than ignoring them. Then choose one or two practices that align with your priorities and constraints. Start smaller than you think you need to. The goal is to establish the pattern, not to achieve perfection immediately. Most importantly, focus on how you want to feel, rather than what you want to accomplish. Do you want to feel energized? Choose practices that boost physical energy. Do you want to feel centered? Choose practices that promote mental clarity. Do you want to feel connected? Choose practices that nurture relationships or spiritual connection. Sarah, a marketing manager, wanted to feel more creative and less anxious. She designed a simple 20-minute routine, 5 minutes of deep breathing, 10 minutes of free writing in a journal, and 5 minutes of reading poetry or inspirational quotes. This routine didn't accomplish any specific tasks, but it consistently put her in a creative, calm state of mind that influenced everything else she did. One crucial element of successful morning routines is protecting them from external demands. This means not checking email, social media, or news during your routine. These inputs immediately shift your brain into reactive mode, undermining the intentional state you're trying to create. Think of your morning routine as your daily appointment with yourself. You wouldn't cancel an important meeting with a colleague to scroll through Instagram, so don't cancel your most important meeting of the day, the one with yourself. Many people resist morning routines because they don't consider themselves morning people, but chronotype is less rigid than most people think. While some individuals naturally prefer evening activities, almost everyone can benefit from some intentional structure in their first waking hour, regardless of when that occurs. If you work night shifts or have young children who wake you up at unpredictable times, you can still create morning-like routines. The key is having a consistent sequence of intentional actions that you perform when you first have control over your attention, whenever that might be. The power of morning routines isn't just about the individual practices. It's about starting your day as the author of your experience, rather than a passive recipient of whatever happens to you. It's about proving to yourself that you have agency, that you can create pockets of calm and intention even in chaotic circumstances. Your morning routine is also a keystone habit that influences everything else. When you start your day with purpose and self-care, you're more likely to make positive choices throughout the day. When you begin reactively, you tend to stay reactive. But perhaps most importantly, your morning routine is a daily practice of self-respect. By carving out time for practices that nourish you, you're sending yourself a powerful message. You matter, your well-being matters, and you deserve to start each day from a place of strength rather than depletion. Your morning routine doesn't need to be perfect, elaborate, or Instagram-worthy. It just needs to be yours. It needs to serve you. It needs to be something you can do consistently, regardless of circumstances. Because in a world that constantly demands your attention and energy, having a daily practice that returns you to yourself isn't just helpful, it's essential. Chapter 7. The Discipline Myth. We've been sold a lie about discipline. We're told that successful people have more willpower, more self-control, more ability to resist temptation and push through discomfort. We believe that if we just had more discipline, we'd eat better, exercise more, procrastinate less, and achieve our goals. This belief is not just wrong, it's counterproductive. The truth is that people who appear to have tremendous discipline don't rely on willpower any more than the rest of us. They've simply structured their lives to minimize the need for self-control. They've automated their good behaviors and eliminated their temptations. They've made the right choices easier and the wrong choices harder. Discipline is like a muscle. It gets fatigued with use. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every impulse you override depletes your willpower reserves. By the end of a long day, even the most disciplined person has diminished capacity for self-control. This is why you can eat perfectly all day and then binge on ice cream after dinner. It's not a character flaw, it's biology. This concept, known as decision fatigue, explains why successful people don't rely on discipline for everything. Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck every day to eliminate clothing decisions. Barack Obama only wore grey or blue suits. Mark Zuckerberg has a closet full of identical grey t-shirts. These individuals understood that every decision requires mental energy, so they automated as many choices as possible to preserve their willpower for more important decisions. The same principle applies to habits. The most disciplined people aren't fighting constant battles with themselves. They've set up systems that make good choices automatic. They don't rely on motivation to go to the gym. They schedule workouts at the same time every day and prepare their gym clothes the night before. They don't use willpower to eat healthy. They meal prep on Sundays and keep only nutritious foods in their kitchen. Consider Jessica, a busy executive who struggled with late-night snacking. Every evening, she'd promise herself she wouldn't eat junk food, but by 9 p.m. her willpower would be depleted from a day of decisions, and she'd find herself eating cookies or chips while watching TV. Jessica's first instinct was to try harder, to have more discipline, but this approach failed repeatedly. Then she tried a different strategy. She changed her environment. Instead of trying to resist temptation, she eliminated it. She stopped buying junk food, stocked her kitchen with healthy snacks, and created a new evening routine that didn't involve sitting in front of the TV with easy access to food. Within a month, Jessica's late-night snacking stopped entirely. It wasn't because her discipline improved. It was because she no longer needed discipline. She had designed her environment to make the right choice, the easy choice. This is the secret that disciplined people understand. Willpower is for emergencies, not everyday decisions. If you're constantly relying on self-control to stick to your habits, you're doing it wrong. The goal is to make good habits so automatic that they require no conscious effort. There are several strategies for reducing your reliance on discipline. First, design your environment to support your goals. If you want to eat healthy, make healthy foods the most convenient option. Keep fruits and vegetables at eye level in your refrigerator. Store junk food in hard-to-reach places, or better yet, don't buy it at all. If you want to exercise regularly, keep your workout clothes visible and your gym bag packed. Second, use implementation intentions, specific plans for when and where you'll perform your habits. Instead of saying I'll exercise more, say I'll go to the gym every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 7 a.m. Instead of I'll eat healthier, say I'll eat a salad with lunch every weekday. These specific intentions reduce the need for decision-making in the moment. Third, stack new habits onto existing routines. This technique, called habit stacking, takes advantage of the neural pathways you've already built. After I pour my morning coffee, I'll write in my gratitude journal. After I sit down for lunch, I'll take 3 deep breaths. After I put on my pajamas, I'll read for 10 minutes. Fourth, reduce friction for good habits and increase friction for bad habits. Want to drink more water? Keep a full water bottle on your desk. Want to read more? Keep books in every room. Want to spend less time on social media? Remove the apps from your phone's home screen, or delete them entirely. The most successful habit changes happen when you barely notice them happening. When a behavior becomes truly automatic, it feels weird not to do it. You brush your teeth without thinking about it. You put on your seatbelt automatically when you get in the car. You check your phone without conscious decision. This automaticity is your goal for positive habits too. You want reaching for water to be as automatic as reaching for your phone. You want exercising to feel as natural as brushing your teeth. You want healthy eating to be as unconscious as putting on your seatbelt. But building this automaticity takes time and patience. Most people abandon their habit changes because they expect immediate results and constant motivation. The discipline myth is particularly harmful because it makes people feel guilty about their failures and proud for the wrong reasons when they succeed. When you fail to stick to a habit, you blame your lack of willpower instead of examining your system. When you succeed, you credit your discipline instead of recognizing the environmental and structural factors that made success likely. This misattribution prevents learning and improvement. If you think success is about willpower, you won't invest in building better systems. If you think failure is about character, you won't look for the systematic causes of your struggles. The truth is that you already have plenty of discipline. You show up to work every day, you pay your bills, you maintain relationships, you handle countless responsibilities and challenges. The issue isn't that you lack self-control, it's that you're applying self-control to the wrong things. Instead of using willpower to force yourself into better habits, use it strategically to build better systems. Use it to design environments that support your goals. Use it to create routines that make good choices. Automatic. Use it to eliminate temptations rather than constantly resisting them. This approach is not only more effective, it's more sustainable. Systems can run automatically for years. Willpower burns out in days or weeks. People who appear disciplined aren't fighting themselves constantly. They've simply won the fight once by building systems that work automatically. Your goal isn't to become more disciplined. Your goal is to become more systematic. Stop trying to change yourself and start changing your systems. Stop fighting your environment and start designing it. Stop relying on motivation and start building routines. The most disciplined person in the world can't out-willpower a bad system. But an ordinary person with a good system can achieve extraordinary results. The choice is yours. Will you keep fighting yourself? Or will you finally start working with yourself? Read Chapter 8. Breaking Bad Habits. The Silent Saboteurs. Your worst habits aren't the obvious ones. They're not the cigarettes, the excessive drinking, or the obvious addictions that you recognize as problems. Your most destructive habits are the silent saboteurs, the seemingly harmless behaviors that slowly drain your energy, scatter your focus and keep you stuck in patterns that no longer serve you. These are the habits that fly under your awareness radar. The endless scrolling through social media, the chronic procrastination disguised as just 5 more minutes, the mental rumination that keeps you awake at night, the perfectionism that prevents you from finishing projects, the people-pleasing that leaves you exhausted and resentful. These habits are particularly insidious because they often provide short-term relief or pleasure while creating long-term problems. Checking your phone gives you a hit of social validation. Procrastination provides temporary escape from anxiety. Perfectionism feels like high standards. People-pleasing avoids conflict. But over time, these behaviors create more problems than they solve. Breaking bad habits requires a different approach than building good ones. You can't just stop a behavior, you have to replace it. Remember the habit loop. Cue, routine, reward. To break a bad habit, you keep the same cue and reward but change the routine. This is called habit substitution, and it's the most effective way to eliminate destructive patterns. Let's start by understanding why bad habits are so sticky. They persist because they serve a function. Even when that function is no longer helpful, that function might be stress relief, boredom management, social connection, or emotional regulation. Until you identify what need your bad habit is meeting, you'll struggle to replace it effectively. Take Maria, a marketing manager who realized she was spending 3 hours a day mindlessly scrolling through social media. She tried deleting the apps multiple times, but always reinstalled them within a few days. She felt weak and undisciplined, but the real issue wasn't willpower. It was that she hadn't identified what need social media was meeting. Through careful observation, Maria realized she reached for her phone whenever she felt overwhelmed at work, bored during transitions, or lonely in the evenings. Social media wasn't just entertainment. It was her primary coping mechanism for difficult emotions. Once she understood this, she could address the real problem. For overwhelm at work, Maria learned to take 3 deep breaths instead of reaching for her phone. For boredom during transitions, she started carrying a book and reading a page or two. For loneliness in the evenings, she scheduled regular calls with friends and family. She wasn't just breaking a bad habit, she was building better coping mechanisms. The key insight is that bad habits aren't character flaws, they're failed solutions to real problems. Your procrastination might be an attempt to avoid the anxiety of imperfection. Your people-pleasing might be a strategy to maintain relationships. Your overthinking might be an attempt to gain control in uncertain situations. This reframe is crucial because it removes shame from the equation. Shame makes behavior change harder because it creates additional stress, which often triggers the very habits you're trying to break. Instead of judging yourself for having bad habits, get curious about what they're trying to do for you. Here's a systematic approach to breaking bad habits. First, increase awareness of the habit. Most bad habits happen automatically, below the threshold of consciousness. You can't change what you don't notice. Start by simply observing when, where, and why the habit occurs. Don't try to change it yet. Just notice it. Keep a habit tracker for a week. Every time you engage in the unwanted behavior, note the time, location, your emotional state, and what triggered it. You might be surprised by the patterns you discover. Maybe you always check social media when you feel anxious. Maybe you procrastinate most when you're tired. Maybe you overthink most when you're alone. Second, identify the real reward you're seeking. What need is this habit meeting? What would you lose if you stopped this behavior completely? Be honest about the benefits, even if they're short-term or counterproductive. Understanding the reward helps you find healthier ways to meet the same need. Third, design a replacement routine. This new routine should address the same trigger and provide a similar reward, but through a healthier behavior. If you eat junk food when stressed, try going for a walk instead. If you scroll through your phone when bored, try doing a crossword puzzle. If you procrastinate when feeling overwhelmed, try breaking tasks into smaller steps. Fourth, make the bad habit harder to do. Increase the friction between you and the unwanted behavior. If you want to watch less TV, unplug it and put the remote in another room. If you want to eat less junk food, then keep it in the house. If you want to spend less time on social media, log out of all accounts and delete the apps from your phone. The goal isn't to make the behavior impossible. It's to create just enough friction that you have to make a conscious choice. When the behavior is automatic, you'll often do it without thinking. When you have to overcome obstacles, you're forced to decide whether you really want to engage in the behavior. Fifth, find positive replacements for the identity that the bad habit reinforced. Bad habits often become part of how we see ourselves. The smoker who needs cigarettes to think, the perfectionist who can't submit work that isn't flawless, the people pleaser who has to say yes to every request. Breaking these habits means evolving your identity. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who needs external validation, become someone who trusts their own judgment. Instead of being someone who avoids discomfort, become someone who faces challenges directly. Instead of being someone who needs to be perfect, become someone who values progress over perfection. This identity shift is crucial, because willpower alone rarely sustains long-term change. If you still see yourself as a smoker who isn't smoking, you'll eventually return to smoking. But if you see yourself as a non-smoker, the behavior becomes inconsistent with your identity. Sometimes the most powerful way to break a bad habit is to change your environment entirely. If you always procrastinate at your desk, try working somewhere else. If you overeat while watching TV, eat only at the dining room table. If you stay up too late browsing the internet, charge your devices outside your bedroom. Environmental changes work because they interrupt the automatic nature of habits. When the context changes, the habit becomes conscious again, giving you an opportunity to choose differently. David struggled with chronic procrastination on important projects. He would sit at his computer intending to work, but would inevitably end up browsing news websites, checking email, or organizing files, anything except the important work. He tried using willpower to stay focused, but it never lasted. Then David changed his environment. He created a dedicated workspace in his spare bedroom, with no internet access. His computer there had only the software necessary for his projects. When he needed to research something online, he had to go to a different room. This simple environmental change eliminated 90% of his procrastination because it removed the sources of distraction. Breaking bad habits often requires patience, because the neural pathways that support them have been strengthened over years or decades. You're not just changing behavior, you're rewiring your brain. This takes time and repetition. Don't expect perfection immediately. The goal is progress, not perfection. Each time you choose the new routine over the old one, you're weakening the bad habit and strengthening the replacement. Each time you catch yourself in the old pattern and consciously choose differently, you're building awareness and self-control. Most importantly, be compassionate with yourself throughout this process. Bad habits served you once. Even if they no longer do, thank them for trying to help. Then gently guide yourself toward better solutions. Change is hard enough without adding self-criticism to the mix. Your bad habits aren't evidence of weakness. They're evidence of unmet needs or outdated coping strategies. Once you address the underlying needs with healthier approaches, the bad habits will naturally fade away, replaced by patterns that truly serve the person you're becoming. Chapter 9. Environment is stronger than willpower. You walk into a bakery and suddenly crave a pastry you had no interest in 5 minutes earlier. You enter a library and automatically lower your voice. You sit in a comfortable chair and feel sleepy even though you were alert moments before. You pick up your phone and immediately start scrolling, even though you picked it up for a completely different reason. This is the power of environment. It shapes your behavior more than your intentions, your willpower, or even your conscious decisions. Your environment is the invisible hand that guides most of your actions throughout the day. Recognize this force and learn to design it intentionally, and you'll find that good habits become effortless while bad habits become nearly impossible. Most people dramatically underestimate how much their surroundings influence their behavior. We like to believe we're in complete control of our choices, that we're rational actors making deliberate decisions based on our values and goals. But behavioral science tells a different story. Studies consistently show that environmental factors, often ones we're not even conscious of, are among the strongest predictors of behavior. Consider the famous study of cafeteria workers who wanted to encourage healthier eating. They tried educational campaigns, calorie labeling, and incentive programs with minimal success. Then they made a simple environmental change. They moved the salad bar to the front of the cafeteria line and put the desserts at the back. Healthy food consumption increased by 25% overnight. Same people, same food, same prices, just a different arrangement. This principle applies to every area of life. If you want to read more, the most effective strategy isn't to rely on motivation. It's to place books throughout your living space and remove distractions like TVs and phones from your reading areas. If you want to exercise regularly, lay out your workout clothes the night before and keep your gym bag by the door. If you want to eat healthier, reorganize your kitchen so nutritious foods are visible and convenient, while junk food is hidden or eliminated entirely. The reason environment is so powerful is that it works automatically, below the level of conscious decision-making. Your brain is constantly scanning your surroundings for cues about how to behave. These cues trigger automatic responses that bypass your rational mind entirely. You don't consciously decide to whisper in a library. The environment signals appropriate behavior, and you respond instinctively. This automatic response system evolved to help humans survive in complex social environments. Our ancestors needed to quickly read situations and adjust their behavior accordingly. The person who could automatically adopt appropriate behaviors for different contexts was more likely to survive and thrive. This same system is still operating today, but instead of helping you navigate tribal dynamics, it's determining whether you reach for an apple or a cookie. Anna learned this lesson while trying to develop a meditation practice. She would set intentions to meditate every morning, but somehow always found excuses. Her meditation cushion was in her bedroom closet, and by the time she retrieved it and found a quiet space, her motivation had evaporated and her day had filled with other obligations. Then Anna redesigned her environment. She moved her meditation cushion to her living room and placed it in the exact spot where she drank her morning coffee. She couldn't have her coffee without seeing the cushion. She also removed her phone charger from the living room, so she couldn't immediately check messages after waking up. These simple changes transformed her practice. The visible cushion served as a constant reminder, while the absence of her phone eliminated the primary distraction. Within a month, Anna was meditating consistently for the first time in years. The change had nothing to do with increased discipline and everything to do with environmental design. Effective environment design works on multiple levels. At the macro level, it's about choosing the right contexts for your goals. If you want to be more social, spend time in environments where social interaction is natural and expected. If you want to be more creative, surround yourself with inspiring art, books, and music. If you want to be more active, live in a walkable neighborhood with access to parks and recreation facilities. At the micro level, it's about arranging your immediate surroundings to support desired behaviors. This might mean reorganizing your workspace to minimize distractions, setting up your kitchen to encourage healthy eating, or arranging your bedroom to promote better sleep. The key principle is to make good choices easier and bad choices harder. Every additional step between you and a desired behavior reduces the likelihood you'll do it. Every obstacle between you and an undesired behavior increases the chance you'll avoid it. James wanted to drink less alcohol and read more books. His old environment worked against both goals. Wine was visible and easily accessible in his kitchen, while books were stored in boxes in his basement. He was constantly fighting his environment with willpower, and willpower was losing. James redesigned his space strategically. He moved all alcohol to a locked cabinet in his garage, requiring deliberate effort to access it. He placed books on his coffee table nightstand, and kitchen counter. Everywhere he might have a few spare minutes to read. He also created a comfortable reading nook by his living room window, complete with good lighting and a soft chair. The results were dramatic. His alcohol consumption dropped by 70% simply because accessing it required more effort. His reading increased from 1 book per year to 1 book per month, because books were always within reach when he had downtime. This wasn't about willpower or motivation. It was about friction. James increased friction for the behavior he wanted to reduce and decreased friction for the behavior he wanted to increase. His environment started working with his goals instead of against them. The concept of friction is central to environmental design. Friction is any obstacle that stands between you and a behavior. High friction makes behaviors less likely. Low friction makes them more likely. The difference between high and low friction can be surprisingly small, sometimes just a few seconds or a few steps. But the impact on behavior can be enormous. Consider the difference between having your running shoes in your bedroom versus having them in your garage. If they're in your bedroom, getting ready for a run requires no additional effort. If they're in your garage, you have to walk outside to get them. This adds maybe 30 seconds to your routine, but that small amount of additional friction can be the difference between running and not running, especially when motivation is low. Digital environments are particularly important to design intentionally, because they're engineered to capture and hold your attention. Social media platforms, news websites, and entertainment apps employ teams of behavioral scientists to make their products as addictive as possible. Fighting these systems with willpower alone is like trying to stop a river with your bare hands. Instead, change your digital environment. Remove social media apps from your phone's home screen, or delete them entirely. Use website blockers during work hours. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Create separate user accounts for work and personal activities. Charge your phone outside your bedroom. These changes might seem small, but they can dramatically reduce the time you spend on activities that don't align with your values. Your social environment is equally important. Humans are incredibly social creatures, and we unconsciously mirror the behaviors of those around us. If you spend time with people who exercise regularly, you're more likely to exercise. If you're surrounded by people who read, you're more likely to read. If you're constantly around people who complain, you're more likely to develop a negative mindset. This doesn't mean you should abandon friends who don't share your goals, but it does mean being intentional about your social influences. Seek out communities, groups, and relationships that support the behaviors you want to develop. Join a running club if you want to run more. Find a book club if you want to read more. Surround yourself with people who embody the qualities you want to develop. Sometimes changing your environment means changing your location entirely. If your current environment is strongly associated with old habits and patterns, it might be necessary to create completely new contexts for change. This is why people often find it easier to maintain healthy habits while traveling. The new environment interrupts old patterns and makes new behaviors feel natural. But you don't need to move across the country to benefit from environmental change. Sometimes just rearranging your furniture, changing your commute route, or working from a different location can provide enough novelty to interrupt automatic behaviors and create space for new choices. The most important insight about environment is that you're not stuck with the one you have. Your environment isn't something that happens to you, it's something you can actively design. Every day, you make choices about how to arrange your space, what to keep visible, what to make convenient, and what to make difficult. These choices might seem insignificant in the moment, but they compound over time to create the context within which all your other choices occur. A well-designed environment makes good choices feel natural and effortless. A poorly designed environment makes every positive choice feel like a battle. Stop fighting your environment and start designing it. Make your space work for you instead of against you. Your future self will thank you for the good choices that suddenly feel automatic. Chapter 10: Triggers, Anchors, and Habit Stacking. The human brain is a pattern-seeking machine. Every moment of every day, it's scanning for cues, looking for familiar sequences, and preparing to execute well-rehearsed behaviors. This isn't a flaw in our design. It's our greatest advantage when it comes to building lasting habits. Most people approach habit formation backwards. They focus on the habit itself, the push-ups, the meditation, the journaling, without understanding that the real power lies in what comes before the habit, the trigger, the anchor, the environmental cue that sets everything in motion. Think about your morning routine. You don't consciously decide to brush your teeth every day. You wake up, feel the fuzzy texture on your teeth, taste the staleness in your mouth, and automatically reach for your toothbrush. The trigger, waking up on tactile sensations, leads seamlessly to the habit. Brushing teeth. This is habit stacking at its most basic level. But here's where most people go wrong. They try to build new habits in a vacuum. They decide they want to meditate, so they set an alarm for 6 a.m. and hope willpower will carry them through. When it doesn't work, they blame themselves for lacking discipline. The truth is, they're fighting against human nature instead of working with it. Habit stacking leverages your existing neural pathways. Instead of creating entirely new routes in your brain, you're adding a small detour to a journey your brain already knows by heart. This dramatically reduces the mental energy required to maintain your new habit, because you're piggybacking on the momentum of established behaviors. The formula is deceptively simple. After before I existing habit, I will new habit. But the execution requires understanding the nuances of trigger selection, environmental design, and behavioral chains. Let's start with trigger selection. Not all existing habits make good anchors. The best triggers share 3 characteristics. They're obvious, attractive, and immediately preceded or followed by a clear context shift. Obvious triggers are impossible to miss. Waking up is obvious. Sitting down at your desk is obvious. Putting your keys in the bowl when you come home is obvious. These behaviors are so ingrained that they happen automatically, making them perfect launching points for new habits. Subtle triggers like when I feel motivated, or after I finish work tasks, are too vague and unreliable. Attractive triggers are behaviors you actually want to do. If you hate making coffee, don't stack a new habit on coffee making. If you love checking your phone in the morning, that's a strong potential anchor. The positive emotions associated with your trigger behavior will transfer to your new habit, making it more likely to stick. Context shifts are natural breaking points in your day, where new behaviors feel logical. The transition from sleep to wakefulness, walking through your front door, closing your laptop at the end of the workday. These moments create mental space for new behaviors because your brain is already shifting gears. Environmental design amplifies the power of habit stacking. Your physical space should make the desired behavior obvious and the undesired behavior difficult. If you want to stack meditation onto your morning coffee routine, set up a meditation cushion next to your coffee maker. If you want to do push-ups after brushing your teeth, keep a yoga mat folded next to your bathroom door. This isn't about perfection, it's about reducing friction. Every small obstacle between you and your desired behavior increases the likelihood that you'll skip it. Every element that makes the behavior more obvious, easier, or more attractive increases the likelihood that you'll follow through. The science behind habit stacking is rooted in how our brains form neural connections. When 2 behaviors occur in sequence repeatedly, the neural pathways associated with those behaviors begin to merge. Eventually, completing the first behavior automatically triggers the desire to complete the second. This is called synaptic plasticity, and it's the biological foundation of all habit formation. But habit stacking isn't just about individual behaviors, it's about creating behavioral chains that compound over time. Let's say you start with after I pour my morning coffee I will write 1 sentence in my journal. Once that connection is solid, you might expand it. After I write 1 sentence in my journal, I will do 5 push-ups. Then, after I do 5 push-ups I will read 1 page of a personal development book. Each habit in the chain reinforces the others. Missing 1 link doesn't break the entire chain because each behavior has its own trigger. This redundancy makes your routine more resilient and creates multiple opportunities for success throughout the day. Advanced habit stackers understand the power of emotional anchoring. They don't just connect behaviors, they connect emotion. If you consistently feel proud after completing your existing habit, that pride becomes part of the trigger for your new habit. If you feel calm and centered during your morning routine, that emotional state primes you for behaviors that maintain that feeling. This is why it's crucial to choose new habits that align with the emotional tone of your existing routine. Stacking an intense workout onto a peaceful morning meditation routine creates emotional discord. Stacking gentle stretching onto the same routine creates emotional harmony. The key to successful habit stacking is starting small and being patient with the process. Most people try to stack complex behaviors onto their existing routines and wonder why it doesn't work. A new habit should be so small that it feels almost silly not to do it. You can always build up from there. Remember, you're not just trying to add a behavior, you're trying to rewire your brain. This takes time, consistency, and patience. But when it works, the results are transformative. Instead of relying on motivation and willpower, you're leveraging the most powerful force in human behavior, the unconscious mind's drive to complete familiar patterns. Your existing routines aren't obstacles to overcome, they're foundations to build upon. Every habit you've already mastered is a potential anchor for the habits you want to develop. The question isn't whether you have the discipline to change. The question is whether you're smart enough to work with your brain instead of against it. Chapter 11. The Power of Accountability and Social Proof. Humans are social creatures down to our cellular level. Our brains are wired to notice what others are doing, mirror their behaviors, and seek their approval. This isn't a weakness to overcome, it's a superpower to harness. Most people treat habit formation as a solo journey. They set private goals, make personal commitments, and wonder why they can't maintain motivation when the going gets tough. They're missing one of the most powerful forces in human psychology, the drive to be consistent with our social identity and the behaviors we've committed to publicly. Social proof works on two levels: descriptive and injunctive. Descriptive social proof tells us what people actually do. Injunctive social proof tells us what people approve of. Both are powerful motivators, but they work differently and can be leveraged in different ways. Descriptive social proof is about belonging. When you see others engaging in a behavior, your brain interprets this as evidence that the behavior is normal, safe, and appropriate for people like you. This is why gyms are packed in January. Seeing others exercise makes exercise feel like the normal thing to do. It's also why gym attendance drops by February. When fewer people show up, not exercising starts to feel normal again. The key to leveraging descriptive social proof is surrounding yourself with people who already embody the habits you want to develop. If you want to become a reader, join a book club. If you want to exercise regularly, find a workout partner, or join a fitness community. If you want to eat healthier, spend time with health-conscious friends. This isn't just about motivation, it's about recalibrating your sense of normal. When everyone around you exercises daily exercise stops feeling like an extraordinary feat of willpower and starts feeling like what people like you naturally do. But proximity isn't enough. You need to actively observe and internalize these behaviors. Pay attention to how fit people talk about exercise. Notice how they prioritize it, how they think about it, how they integrate it into their lives. Absorb not just what they do, but how they think about what they do. Injunctive social proof is about approval. Humans have a deep need to be liked, respected, and valued by their community. When you publicly commit to a behavior, you're leveraging this need to create powerful motivation to follow through. The fear of appearing inconsistent or disappointing others can be stronger than any internal motivation. This is why public commitments are so effective. When you tell your friends you're training for a marathon, you're not just sharing information, you're creating social pressure to follow through. Every time someone asks about your training, you're reminded of your commitment. Every time you consider skipping a run, you're weighing that momentary comfort against your social reputation. But public accountability has to be done strategically. The wrong kind of accountability can backfire, creating shame instead of motivation. The key is to share your commitment with people who will support your success, rather than judge your failures. Choose accountability partners who understand the psychology of habit formation. They should celebrate small wins, help you problem-solve obstacles, and remind you of your larger identity goals when you're struggling with day-to-day execution. They should focus on your effort and consistency, rather than just your results. The most effective accountability systems combine public commitment with private tracking. You commit publicly to the process. I will exercise 5 days per week, but you track the details privately. This gives you the motivational benefit of social pressure without the stress of having every workout scrutinized. Digital accountability has created new opportunities for social support. Online communities, apps that share your progress with friends, and social media challenges can provide the benefits of accountability without requiring in-person relationships. But digital accountability requires more intentional curation. You need to actively seek out and engage with communities that reinforce your desired behaviors. The science behind social accountability is rooted in our evolutionary psychology. For thousands of years, being rejected by your tribe meant death. Our brains still carry this ancient programming. When we make public commitments, we're activating the same neural pathways that once kept us alive in small hunter-gatherer groups. This is why accountability works even when the consequences are minimal. Your workout partner can't actually force you to exercise, but your brain doesn't fully understand this. The potential for social rejection, however small, triggers powerful motivation to follow through on your commitments. But accountability isn't just about external pressure. it's about identity reinforcement. When you consistently show up for your commitments, you're proving to yourself that you're the kind of person who follows through. When others witness this consistency, they reflect it back to you, strengthening your identity as a reliable, disciplined person. This creates a positive feedback loop. The stronger your identity as someone who follows through, the easier it becomes to follow through. The more others see you as consistent and disciplined, the more you see yourself that way. Over time, following through stops being something you do and becomes something you are. Group challenges and team-based goals leverage competitive social dynamic. When you're part of a team working toward a common goal, you don't want to be the weak link. When you're competing with friends, you push yourself harder than you would alone. These dynamics can provide short-term motivation, but they work best when combined with longer-term accountability partnerships. The most sophisticated accountability systems create multiple layers of social support. You might have a close accountability partner for daily check-ins, a small group for weekly progress sharing, and a larger community for inspiration and advice. Each layer serves a different function and provides backup when others aren't available. Remember that accountability is a two-way street. The most sustainable accountability relationships are mutual. When you're helping someone else maintain their habits, you're reinforcing your own commitment to consistency. When you're both invested in each other's success, the relationship becomes a source of strength rather than pressure. Social proof and accountability don't replace personal responsibility. They amplify it. They make it easier to do what you already want to do, and create external structure when your internal motivation wavers. They transform habit formation from a private struggle into a shared journey. Your habits don't exist in isolation. They exist within the context of your relationships and community. By intentionally designing that context to support your desired behaviors, you're not just changing what you do, you're changing who you are, and that change becomes visible to others, inspiring them to make their own positive changes, creating ripple effects that extend far beyond your personal transformation. Chapter 12: The 66-Day Rule. How long change really takes. The myth of 21 days has done more damage to habit formation than perhaps any other piece of popular psychology. This oversimplified timeline has convinced millions of people that meaningful change should be quick and easy, setting them up for disappointment when real transformation takes longer than 3 weeks. The truth about habit formation is more complex and ultimately more encouraging. Research by Dr. Philippa Lally at University College London found that it takes an average of 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic, but that average masks important variations. Simple habits like drinking a glass of water took as few as 18 days, while complex habits like exercising daily took up to 54 days. Understanding the real timeline of habit formation changes everything about how you approach change. Instead of expecting instant results, you can prepare for the actual journey ahead. Instead of interpreting early struggles as personal failures, you can recognize them as normal parts of the process. The habit formation process follows a predictable curve. The first phase, lasting roughly 1 to 20 days, is characterized by high motivation but high effort. Everything feels intentional and difficult. You have to consciously remember to do your new behavior, and it requires significant mental energy. This is when most people quit, mistaking the natural difficulty of this phase for personal inadequacy. The second phase, roughly days 21-45, is what researchers call the valley of disappointment. The initial excitement has worn off, but the behavior still requires conscious effort. This is the most dangerous phase for habit abandonment. You're doing the work but not yet experiencing the ease of automaticity. Your brain is building new neural pathways, but they're not yet strong enough to make the behavior feel natural. The third phase, beginning around day 46 and extending to day 66 and beyond, is when automaticity begins to emerge. The behavior starts to feel more natural and requires less conscious effort to initiate. This is when the magic of habit formation becomes apparent. What once felt like a struggle now feels like a natural part of your routine. But even these phases aren't perfectly linear or universal. The complexity of the habit, the consistency of your environment, your existing neural patterns, and external stressors all influence the timeline. A habit that builds on existing routines will develop faster than one that requires entirely new contexts. A habit performed in the same environment every day will solidify faster than one that varies in location or timing. The most important insight from the 66-day research isn't the specific number, it's the understanding that habit formation is a gradual neurological process, not a sudden switch. Your brain is literally rewiring itself, strengthening some neural connections while allowing others to weaken. This physical transformation takes time and can't be rushed through willpower alone. This neurological perspective explains why consistency matters more than perfection. Missing one day doesn't reset your progress to zero. It simply doesn't add to the strengthening of your neural pathway. Dr. Lally's research found that missing a single day had no measurable impact on long-term habit formation. What matters is the overall pattern of repetition over time. Understanding this removes the all-or-nothing pressure that destroys so many habit formation attempts. You don't need perfect adherence to build lasting habits. You need consistent adherence. A habit performed 85% of the time over 66 days will be stronger than a habit performed 100% of the time for 21 days, and then abandoned. The valley of disappointment is where most people give up, but it's also where the real transformation happens. Your brain is working even when you don't feel it. Neural pathways are strengthening even when the behavior still feels effortful. The lack of immediate gratification doesn't mean lack of progress. It means you're in the most crucial phase of the process. Surviving the valley requires shifting your focus from outcomes to systems. Instead of asking, "Am I seeing results yet?" ask, "Am I consistently showing up?" Instead of measuring progress by how easy the habit feels, measure it by how consistently you're performing it. The ease will come, but only if you persist through the period when it still feels hard. Environmental consistency accelerates the habit formation process. The more cues you can keep constant, same time, same place, same sequence, the faster your brain learns to associate those cues with the desired behavior. This is why morning routines tend to stick faster than evening routines. Mornings offer more consistent environmental cues. Social accountability becomes especially crucial during the valley of disappointment. This is when external support matters most, because internal motivation is at its lowest. Having someone to report your consistency to, rather than your results, keeps you focused on the process during the phase when the process is all you have. The 66-day timeline also reveals why January resolutions typically fail by February. Most people expect to see dramatic changes within a month, and when they don't, they assume the habit isn't working. They quit, just as their brains are beginning to wire the new neural pathways that would eventually make the behavior automatic. Advanced habit builders use the 66-day timeline strategically. They plan for the valley of disappointment, setting up systems and support structures specifically for days 21-45. They celebrate process milestones, day 7, day 21, day 45, rather than waiting for outcome results. They understand that feeling unmotivated on day 30 doesn't mean they should quit. It means they're right on schedule. The most profound insight from habit formation research is that automaticity isn't binary. It's gradual. You don't wake up on day 67 with a completely automatic habit. Instead, you gradually experience the behavior as requiring less conscious effort and feeling more natural. By day 100, it might feel truly automatic. By day 200, it might feel like part of your identity. This extended timeline isn't discouraging. It's liberating. It means you don't have to rely on motivation and willpower indefinitely. It means the struggle you feel in the early days isn't permanent. It means that if you can persist through the valley of disappointment, you'll reach a point where maintaining your new behavior requires minimal ongoing effort. The 66-day rule isn't just about individual habits. It's about understanding the nature of all lasting change. Whether you're developing exercise habits, eating habits, work habits, or relationship habits, the underlying process remains the same. Expect the initial excitement. Prepare for the valley of disappointment. Trust the process, even when progress feels invisible. Real transformation doesn't happen in 21 days. It happens gradually, through consistent repetition over months, not weeks. But when it happens, it creates changes that last, not just for the rest of the year, but for the rest of your life. That's a timeline worth committing to. Chapter 13. What to do when you fall off track. The moment you miss your first day is when your real character is revealed. Not the character you show when everything is going perfectly, but the character you show when faced with the inevitable reality of human imperfection. Every person who has ever built lasting habits has faced this moment. The difference between those who succeed and those who give up isn't that successful people never fail. It's that they've learned to fail better. They've developed systems for getting back on track that are as important as the habits themselves. The psychology of habit interruption is predictable and brutal. When you miss a day, your brain doesn't just register the absence of the behavior. It begins to question the entire identity you've been building. One missed workout becomes evidence that you're not really a fitness person. One day of poor eating becomes proof that you don't have the discipline to eat healthy. One skipped meditation session becomes confirmation that you're not cut out for mindfulness practices. This identity crisis is what researchers call the what the hell effect. Once you've broken your streak, your brain convinces you that you've already failed. So you might as well continue failing. The perfectionist mindset that helped you maintain consistency now becomes the enemy that prevents you from recovering. The antidote to the what the hell effect is understanding the difference between lapse and relapse. A lapse is a single deviation from your planned behavior. A relapse is abandoning your new identity entirely. Lapses are inevitable and manageable. Relapses are optional and avoidable. The most important habit you can develop isn't perfect consistency. It's perfect recovery. This means having a predetermined plan for what you'll do when, not if you miss a day. This plan should be specific, immediate, and focused on the very next action, rather than trying to make up for lost time. The 24-hour rule is simple but transformative. You have exactly 24 hours from your last planned behavior to get back on track. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not next month, within 24 hours. This prevents a single missed day from becoming a missed week, month, or year. But getting back on track doesn't mean overcompensating. If you missed your planned 30-minute workout, the solution isn't to do a 2-hour workout the next day. The solution is to do a 30-minute workout or even a 10-minute workout if that's all you can manage. The goal is to rebuild the neural pathway, not to punish yourself for the interruption. Understanding why you fell off track is crucial for preventing future lapses. Most habit interruptions fall into predictable categories: environmental changes, emotional stress, social pressure, or simple overwhelm. Each category requires a different recovery strategy. Environmental changes, travel, schedule disruptions, changes in routine are the most common cause of habit interruption. The key to recovering from environmental lapses is flexibility rather than rigidity. Instead of trying to maintain your exact routine in a new environment, focus on maintaining the identity behind the routine. If you can't do your full morning workout while traveling, do 10 minutes of bodyweight exercises in your hotel room. If you can't meditate in your usual spot, meditate for 5 minutes wherever you are. Emotional stress creates a different type of challenge. When you're dealing with crisis, change, or high stress, your brain prioritizes immediate survival over long-term development. Your new habits, no matter how well established, can feel impossible to maintain. The key to recovering from emotional lapses is radical self-compassion combined with minimum viable habits. Minimum viable habits are the absolute smallest version of your behavior that still maintains the identity. If you normally journal for 20 minutes, your minimum viable habit might be writing 1 sentence. If you normally exercise for an hour, it might be doing 10 jumping jacks. These aren't permanent reductions, they're temporary bridges that keep your identity intact during challenging periods. Social pressure lapses occur when your environment temporarily doesn't support your new habits. The business dinner, where healthy eating is impossible. The weekend with friends, where your morning routine gets disrupted. The family gathering, where your usual boundaries don't apply. Recovering from social lapses requires planning ahead and having contingency strategies. Before entering social situations that might challenge your habits, decide in advance what your non-negotiables are and what you're willing to be flexible about. Communicate these boundaries to others when appropriate. Most importantly, have a specific plan for how you'll get back on track as soon as the social situation ends. Overwhelm lapses happen when you're trying to change too much too quickly. Your motivation is high, but your capacity is finite. You start 5 new habits simultaneously, and then wonder why you can't maintain any of them. Recovering from overwhelm lapses often means simplifying rather than intensifying your approach. The most counterintuitive aspect of habit recovery is that self-compassion is more effective than self-criticism. Research consistently shows that people who treat themselves with kindness after setbacks recover faster and maintain better long-term consistency than those who engage in harsh self-judgment. This doesn't mean making excuses or lowering your standards. It means treating yourself the way you'd treat a good friend who was struggling with the same challenge. You'd be understanding about the difficulty, encouraging about their ability to recover, and focused on solutions rather than blame. The language you use when you fall off track matters more than you might think. Instead of "I blew it," try "I had a lapse." Instead of "I'm terrible at this," try "I'm learning how to recover." Instead of "I'd start over Monday," try "I'll get back on track with my very next action." Advanced habit practitioners develop what researchers call implementation intentions for recovery. These are if-then plans that specify exactly what you'll do when specific obstacles arise. If I miss my morning workout due to oversleeping, then I will do a 10-minute bodyweight routine before dinner. If I eat junk food at lunch, then I will prepare a healthy dinner and take a 15-minute walk after eating. These implementation intentions remove the need for willpower and decision-making when you're already feeling defeated. They transform recovery from a vague intention into a specific, predetermined action. The most important thing to remember about falling off track is that it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're human. Every expert, every success story, every person with incredible habits has faced this exact same challenge. The difference isn't that they never fall off track. The difference is that they tend to fall forward instead of falling backward. Your ability to recover from setbacks isn't separate from your ability to build habits. It is your ability to build habits. Perfect consistency is impossible. Perfect recovery is a skill you can master. And once you master it, missing a day stops being a crisis and becomes simply another opportunity to prove to yourself who you really are. Chapter 14. Scaling your habits for every season of life. Life is not static, and neither should your habits be. The workout routine that serves you in your 20s may not work when you're raising young children. The career habits that propel you forward as a single person may need adjustment when you're part of a partnership. The health practices that maintain your energy during calm periods may require modification during times of stress or transition. Most people approach habit formation as if they're building permanent structures. They create elaborate routines designed for ideal circumstances, and then wonder why everything falls apart when life inevitably changes. The truth is that sustainable habits aren't rigid systems. They're flexible frameworks that can adapt to changing contexts while preserving core behaviors and identities. The key to scalable habits is understanding the difference between the essential and the ideal. The essential elements are the non-negotiable components that maintain your identity and core benefits. The ideal elements are the additional components that you include when circumstances permit. Consider exercise habits. The essential element might be moving your body daily. The ideal elements might include a specific type of workout, a particular duration, or a certain location. When life circumstances change, you get injured, you have a new baby, you start a demanding job, you scale back to the essential elements while maintaining the identity of someone who moves their body daily. This approach prevents the all-or-nothing thinking that destroys habits during transitional periods. Instead of abandoning exercise entirely because you can't maintain your ideal routine, you scale down to something sustainable while preserving the neural pathways and identity that make returning to your ideal routine possible when circumstances improve. Seasonal scaling involves adjusting your habits based on predictable life patterns. Your energy and available time naturally fluctuate throughout the year. Your work may have busy seasons and slower periods. Your family responsibilities may vary based on school schedules, holidays, or other recurring commitments. Instead of fighting these natural rhythms, successful habit builders work with them. They identify their high-capacity seasons and their low-capacity seasons, then design different versions of their habits for each period. During high-capacity seasons, they expand their habits to include ideal elements. During low-capacity seasons, they contract their habits to focus on essential elements. This might mean having a winter workout routine and a summer workout routine, or a busy season meditation practice and a calm season meditation practice. The specific behaviors may change, but the underlying identity and core benefits remain consistent. Transitional scaling involves adapting your habits during major life changes, moving to a new city, starting a new job, getting married, having children, dealing with illness, or facing any other significant disruption to your normal routine. These periods are when most people abandon their habits entirely, but they're also when maintaining some version of your habits is most crucial for psychological stability. The key to successful transitional scaling is planning ahead when possible and responding quickly when changes are unexpected. Before a major life transition, identify which of your habits are most important for your well-being and create minimum viable versions of those habits that can survive disruption. For unexpected changes, implement emergency protocols immediately. Don't wait to see how the disruption affects your routine. Assume it will be significant and scale back preemptively. This prevents the cascade of missed days that often turns temporary disruptions into permanent habit abandonment. Environmental scaling involves adapting your habits to different physical spaces and contexts. Your home routine may not work when you're traveling. Your office habits may not transfer when you work from home. Your gym-based exercise routine may not be possible during a gym closure. The most resilient habit builders develop multiple versions of their key habits that can be executed in different environments. They have a home workout and a hotel room workout. They have office productivity routines and work from home productivity routine. They have elaborate cooking routines for when they have time and simple meal routines for when they don't. This environmental flexibility prevents location-dependent habits from being completely derailed by changes in context. Instead of being unable to maintain their habits, they simply switch to the version that fits their current environment. Social scaling involves adapting your habits as your relationships and social contexts change. The meditation practice you maintain as a single person may need adjustment when you're living with a partner. The early morning routine that works when you live alone may need motivation when you have roommates or family members with different schedules. Successful social scaling often involves negotiation and communication with the people in your life. Help them understand why your habits are important to you, and work together to find versions that respect everyone's needs and schedules. Sometimes this means compromising on timing or location. Sometimes it means finding ways to include others in your habits. Age-based scaling recognizes that your physical capabilities, energy levels, and life priorities change over time. The intense workout routines of your 20s may not be sustainable or appropriate in your 50s. The career-focused habits of your 30s may need adjustment as you prioritize family in your 40s. Rather than seeing these changes as defeats, view them as natural evolutions. The goal isn't to maintain identical habits throughout your entire life. It's to maintain beneficial habits that serve your current life stage, while preserving the identity and discipline that make habit formation possible. The most sophisticated approach to scaling involves building modularity into your habits from the beginning. Instead of creating single, inflexible routines, create habit modules that can be combined, rearranged, or temporarily removed based on current circumstances. A modular morning routine might include separate modules for movement, mindfulness, nutrition, and planning. During high-capacity periods, you might use all 4 modules. During low-capacity periods, you might use only 2. During travel, you might rearrange the order or substitute different versions of each module. This modular approach requires more initial planning, but creates habits that are almost infinitely adaptable. Instead of having one fragile routine that breaks under pressure, you have a flexible system that can be customized for any situation. Chapter 15: Becoming the kind of person who doesn't quit. This is where everything changes. This is where you stop being someone who tries things and start being someone who transforms themselves. This is where you move from hoping you can change to knowing you will change. Because quitting is no longer in your vocabulary. The difference between people who temporarily adopt new behaviors and people who permanently transform their lives isn't talent, circumstances, or even motivation. It's identity. People who don't quit have fundamentally changed how they see themselves. They've moved from "I am someone who is trying to exercise" to "I am someone who exercises," from "I want to be disciplined" to "I am disciplined." This identity shift doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen through affirmations or wishful thinking. It happens through the accumulation of evidence. Every time you keep a commitment to yourself, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. Every time you follow through despite not feeling like it, you're building proof that you are reliable, disciplined, and capable of change. The psychology of non-quitters is built on what researchers call self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to succeed at specific tasks. But self-efficacy isn't just positive thinking. It's confidence based on past performance. It's earned trust in your own capabilities. And it's built through the systematic accumulation of small wins over time. Most people quit because they set their sights on the wrong targets. They focus on outcomes they can't completely control, instead of processes they can completely control. They measure their worth by their results, instead of their consistency. They judge their progress by external metrics, instead of internal transformation. Non-quitters understand that the real victory isn't achieving any specific outcome. It's becoming the kind of person who doesn't give up when outcomes don't come easily. They measure success by their ability to persist, not by their ability to achieve. They celebrate showing up, not just winning. This mindset shift changes everything about how you approach challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as reasons to quit, you see them as opportunities to prove your commitment to yourself. Instead of viewing setbacks as evidence of your inadequacy, you view them as normal parts of any meaningful journey. Instead of needing to feel motivated to act, you act regardless of how you feel. The neuroscience behind this transformation is profound. Every time you act in alignment with your desired identity despite not feeling like it, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with discipline and self-control. Your brain literally becomes wired for persistence. What once required enormous willpower eventually becomes automatic. But this rewiring only happens if you consistently choose the hard thing over the easy thing, the beneficial thing over the immediately gratifying thing, the identity-consistent thing over the momentarily appealing thing. Every choice is a chance to reinforce the person you're becoming, or revert to the person you used to be. Non-quitters develop what psychologists call grit, passion and perseverance for long-term goals. But grit isn't something you're born with or without. It's something you develop through deliberate practice. And the way you develop it is by refusing to quit on small commitments so that you build up the mental strength to persist with larger challenges. This is why the specific habits you choose matter less than your commitment to not abandoning them. Whether you're building a meditation practice, an exercise routine, or a business skill, the real transformation is happening in your relationship with commitment itself. You're learning to trust yourself to follow through. You're developing the identity of someone who finishes what they start. The most powerful shift happens when you stop seeing persistence as a struggle and start seeing it as a strength. Instead of thinking I have to do this, you start thinking I get to do this. Instead of feeling burdened by your commitments, you feel proud of your consistency. This reframe isn't just semantic, it's neurological. When you view your habits as privileges rather than obligations, your brain releases different chemicals. Instead of the stress hormones associated with forced compliance, you get the reward chemicals associated with chosen behavior. This makes persistence feel better, which makes persistence more likely. Non-quitters also develop what researchers call anti-fragility, the ability to get stronger under stress rather than weaker. They don't just bounce back from setbacks, they use setbacks as fuel for even greater commitment. When they face obstacles, they don't see evidence that they should quit. They see evidence that they're on a path worth fighting for. This anti-fragility is built through exposure to manageable challenges. Every time you keep a small commitment when it's inconvenient, you're building your capacity to keep larger commitments when it's difficult. Every time you push through minor resistance, you're expanding your comfort zone for major resistance. The process of becoming someone who doesn't quit involves several predictable stages. First is the honeymoon phase, where motivation is high and everything feels possible. This typically lasts 1 to 3 weeks. Most people mistake this phase for success and are unprepared when it ends. Second is the resistance phase, where the initial excitement wears off, but the behavior hasn't yet become automatic. This is where most people quit. It's uncomfortable, requires effort, and doesn't provide immediate gratification. Non-quitters understand that this phase is temporary and necessary. They prepare for it, expect it, and persist through it. Third is the integration phase, where the behavior begins to feel more natural and requires less conscious effort. You're not fully automatic yet, but the struggle is diminishing. Non-quitters recognize this phase as evidence that their persistence is working, which motivates them to continue. Fourth is the mastery phase, where the behavior becomes truly automatic and feels like a natural part of who you are. You don't have to think about it, decide about it, or motivate yourself to do it. It's simply what you do because it's who you are. The key insight is that most people quit during the resistance phase, just before they would naturally enter the integration phase. They give up on their transformation just when their brain is about to make the behavior easier. Understanding this timeline helps you persist through the most challenging period, because you know what's coming next. Non-quitters also develop sophisticated systems for managing their internal dialogue. They become aware of the voice in their head that suggests quitting and learn to respond to it rather than react to it. They don't try to eliminate the voice, they learn to hear it and choose differently. When the voice says this is too hard, they respond with hard things make me stronger. When it says you're not seeing results fast enough, they respond with I'm building results that will last a lifetime. When it says you can start over tomorrow, they respond with the person I'm becoming acts today. This internal dialogue management isn't about toxic positivity or ignoring real challenges. It's about consciously choosing which thoughts to amplify and which thoughts to redirect. Your brain offers many thoughts throughout the day. Non-quitters have learned to select the thoughts that serve their long-term identity rather than their short-term comfort. The social dimension of not quitting is equally important. Non-quitters surround themselves with other people who don't quit. They seek out mentors, communities, and relationships that reinforce their commitment to persistence, rather than enable their tendency to give up. They also learn to communicate their commitments in ways that create positive pressure, rather than negative judgment. They share their goals with people who will support their growth rather than people who will make excuses for their failures. They ask for accountability rather than sympathy when they're struggling. Perhaps most importantly, non-quitters develop a long-term perspective that transcends any individual habit or goal. They understand that they're not just building a morning routine or an exercise practice. They're building their capacity for sustained commitment across all areas of life. They're developing what might be called persistence muscles that will serve them in their career, relationships, health, and personal growth for decades to come. This long-term perspective makes short-term discomfort feel manageable. When you know that persisting through today's challenge is building strength for tomorrow's opportunities, the effort feels worthwhile. When you understand that every time you don't quit, you're making it easier to not quit next time, the investment feels wise. The ultimate goal isn't to never feel like quitting. It's to act consistently, regardless of how you feel. Non-quitters don't experience fewer moments of doubt, frustration, or fatigue. They experience the same human emotions as everyone else. The difference is that they've learned to separate their feelings from their actions. They understand that motivation follows action, not the other way around. They don't wait to feel like doing something. They do it, and then notice how they feel afterward. They've learned that confidence comes from keeping commitments to yourself, not from feeling ready to keep commitments. This separation of feeling and action is perhaps the most valuable skill you can develop. It's what allows you to exercise when you don't feel like exercising, to eat healthy when you don't feel like eating healthy, to work on important projects when you don't feel like working, and to show up as your best self when you don't feel like your best self. When you master this skill, you become unstoppable. Not because you never encounter obstacles, but because obstacles no longer determine your behavior. You become someone who acts based on their commitments rather than their moods, their values rather than their feelings, their identity rather than their circumstances. This is the final transformation from someone who tries to, someone who is, from someone who hopes to, someone who acts, from someone who starts to, someone who finishes. From someone who quits when things get difficult to someone who persists until things get better. You are not stuck with who you used to be. You are not limited by your past attempts or failures. You are not defined by your current circumstances or feelings. You are defined by your next action. And if your next action aligns with the person you want to become, you are already becoming that person. The power of good habits isn't just about what you do. It's about who you become. And once you become someone who doesn't quit, everything else becomes possible. Not easy, but possible. And possible is all you need. Your habits are not just tools for achieving goals, they are the foundation of your identity. They are how you prove to yourself who you really are. They are how you become the person you've always had the potential to be. The question isn't whether you can change. The question is whether you will change. The capacity is already within you. The choice is already before you. The only thing left is to decide, are you ready to become the kind of person who doesn't quit? Because once you make that decision, really make it, not just hope for it, your transformation is inevitable. It may not be immediate, but it is inevitable, and that inevitability, that absolute certainty in your commitment to yourself, is what makes you unstoppable. You are not trying to build good habits. You are becoming the kind of person who has good habits. You are not hoping to change. You are changing. You are not someone who quits. You are someone who persists until you succeed. That person has been inside you all along. These habits are simply how you let them out.